Hi everyone, it's Jessica Minnickbach and I am recording my Module 2 presentation on misconceptions. So the misconception I will be discussing today falls under the forces and fluids category. Number 1 being objects float in water because they are lighter than water, and misconception number 2, objects sink in water because they are heavier than water. Now we know these to be false, so why does this misconception exist? Students often believe that weight determines if an object will sink or float, which is not true. Objects sink or float for a few different reasons. Number 1, density, which is how closely molecules are crowded together in a space. You can see in this picture on the right, there are 3 blocks where the particles or parts of the block are either more separated, closer together, and on the right where the block sunk, the most dense, and there's more particles close together. And that's what causes an object to either sink or float. There's also buoyancy. When more of the surface is touching the water, the object is more buoyant, which means it floats better. So you can see on the picture at the right as well, more of the object was touching the surface, it's floating better, which is like a similar theory as to why boats are floating. And displacement. When an object floats, it pushes water out of the way. So in order to debunk this misconception, I'm going to do an activity about does it sink or float. And I have this lesson plan that will be linked along with my presentation that I used and I adapted for this activity. So first I thought about a real world scenario. I thought about a pond where some objects rest at the bottom, like rocks and certain plants, and others float at the top, like a lily pad, and thinking about why does this occur. So for the activity, students will be given a variety of objects of different sizes, densities, materials, etc. I was very intentional to pick objects that had different characteristics, that way it wouldn't further confuse the students. And they will need to determine if the object will sink or float. Students will fill up a clear bowl with water and place each object into the water and observe if it sinks or floats. I've also included some pictures here of a recording sheet that I made to go along with this activity. So here are the materials that I chose. As you can see on the top, in the top 3 pictures, the coins, rocks, and marbles all sunk to the bottom of the bowl. However, the ball, the wooden stick, and the sponge, they all floated at the top. So then I thought about furthering this activity and can a sinking object float? So I used tinfoil to make a boat to be able to make a sinking object float. So you can see here on the left, I have a picture of the tinfoil boat floating, and then I have a picture where the rock, marble, and coins were all placed in the tinfoil. The tinfoil created more buoyancy because there was more surface covering the water, and the displacement forced more water out of the way that allowed the objects to float. These pictures show that weight, as referenced during the misconception, does not determine if the object can sink or float, because the objects that sunk on the last slide are the same objects used in this picture as well, but yet they're now floating. Therefore, the objects float in water because they are lighter than water, and objects sink in water because they are heavier than water, are false. Density, buoyancy, and displacement factors that influence whether are factors that influence whether an object will sink or float, not the weight of the object. And I also found this video that incorporates a lot of these concepts with more real-world scenarios called Sink or Float by Science Show Kids on YouTube, that I like to end my lessons to kind of wrap it up with a video. And then I have my references, so I look forward to seeing everyone else's activities, and I hope you guys all enjoyed my video.